All right, hey everyone. With this video, I'm going to jump back into where we left off on Thursday related to working with our R projects and our GitHub repositories and connecting the local project on our computer with the cloud project and repository up in GitHub. So where we left off in this realm of things was that we have our pretty much blank R project open in front of us on our desktops like I do here. And you should be able to see that you are in your class project repository. You can look at this by looking at the top right-hand corner. It will be reading back to you. It will also be sort of in the header bar up here. And what I want us to do is go ahead and open up one of the documents that were pre-created for you on the repo that you guys cloned. And we're going to make some edits to it, and we're going to try to push it back up to GitHub so that the changes you make locally on your computer are stored up in the GitHub cloud. So how we're going to do that is we're first going to make edits to one of the files that we've placed in there called the README. You may see README in various softwares that you download, or they're almost in every GitHub repository in our project. And it's usually a place where you can kind of write yourself notes, potentially if you have a method you want to lay out, or if you have notes about the data or the code and how it's organized. These can be really useful to put in a README so that not only do you have it connected to the rest of your project, but others can view it if they're looking at your repo. But for our sake, we're just going to kind of practice writing in it as a way of sort of introducing ourselves in the class. And so what the README file is in our folder list down here in what should be most people's bottom right. It's this readme.md file, which stands for a markdown document. And we will talk about these different kinds of documents later in the class. And so you can open this in one of two ways in R, or actually probably one of many ways. One of our default ways that's maybe most intuitive is really just to click on it, and it will open up and populate sort of this main screen here on our RStudio. But another way to open it from what we'll call our console. So Tyler talked about this is where the coding and the computation actually happens. We can put in a function that helps us open this file without clicking any buttons, which will be the word file dot. And you can see that R is already prompting me here. And this is going to be file.edit. And then inside the parentheses of this function, we put our argument, which in this case will just be the name of the file that we want to open in quotations. So I can say file edit readme.md and press enter, and it will open the exact same way. So now we have this markdown file, and unlike the script files that you have been working on or worked on Thursday with Tyler, these are actually files where you can just write plain text and it won't throw any errors. It's basically like a text file for now. It has some more powers. But what we ask of you here is just to delete the text that we have written, and you can write some information about yourself for us. So this will be something that we can see in your repository, hopefully if you're able to push it back up to GitHub. So the information that you can put on here is your name. So I can write this, and I'll give you a trick already. If you just normally press enter as you would in a Word document in Markdown speak, it does not necessarily intuit that as a clean break to the next line. Instead, you'll want to put 2 spaces is one way to indicate to a Markdown document that you actually want to space down to the next line. So I can put my name with 2 spaces after it. My preferred pronouns are she, her. A little bit about the research that I do. So I study seed systems and biodiversity. And that's about it. So those are kind of some basics. You can fill in plenty more information there. But for now, what we really want to do is see, can we get this information back up into our GitHub repository? Because when I save it here locally on my computer, that does not mean that this information will automatically be saved in the cloud. So it's not synced in that way. And we can check that by looking at our repositories that we keep in our organization. So again, I can navigate to our class organization. I can hopefully go find me in our teams. So we have our Vulcans team. everyone's repository should now be listed in this team. And I can find mine. And even though I just saved this markdown document, the markdown document that's up in GitHub, it does not update automatically. So our goal is to get this project, this repository to match what's on our computer. So how do we do this? I'll show you two different ways. One way is that we're going to navigate to the upper right-hand corner of the RStudio interface and jump to this tab that says Git. And what this tab does is that whenever you update any of your files in this RStudio project, it will populate this sort of Git box with the documents that you've changed. So here it knows that I've changed my README markdown document. And so there are going to be 3 stages that, I've been saying I kept these stages sort of written on a Post-it note for quite a while so that you could remember them, because they're not necessarily intuitive, but the stages to what in GitHub speak is pushing your edits up to the remote GitHub server. And those stages are going to be stage, unfortunately named. So you're going to stage the commit, you're going to commit the edit, and then you're going to push it. So it's stage, commit, and push. And to do that, there is a staged checkbox right here, which you can click. You can say, I want to stage this to push up. You're then going to go to the commit box up here, and it will prompt you with a new sort of pop-up thing. So what this does is it shows you the changes that you made. In red, you'll be able to see, oh, you deleted what was previously there. I've added what's in green. Great. And so then the next step is to commit. And every time we commit, we're also going to write ourselves a little message about what the edit was. So I edited my README is all you really have to say. Nothing fancy, doesn't have to be very descriptive, but you can add it as a message, click commit, and then you will get sort of a prompt that for our purposes right now, this is not totally important to understand, but you can get that it gives you some information, right? That here's my note, I edited README, which is 1 file change. I inserted 3 lines. So that's probably 3 insertions, and I deleted 3 lines. So it will sort of summarize the change that happened. Great, I press close, but in fact, I'm not done yet, because the third step is this push button. I think there's also a push button in the RStudio interface itself, but we can push it right here. Excuse me. And so I'm going to press push. And as long as you don't see any errors in this box, you can assume that it was pretty successful. So one way of doing this is it will sort of show you where the URL path to where this was pushed. So this is my R. Davis in-class project. And what it's telling me is, I've sort of pushed this all to the master branch, so up in the GitHub cloud. And we don't have to totally understand that yet, but if this is the response that you got, then you are good. And we can check this out, which I can now go look at my GitHub page and refresh it, and it should be updated. Great. So I refreshed it. Now my README has changed with my information. If you got that far, that's sort of the big workflow piece that we wanted to make sure that you're on board with by week 2, because this is how we will be submitting homeworks for the class. This is the kind of workflow that you'll want to get into with any project that you set up. And so this will be a really good bread and butter for project management. But if you tried to go through these steps in Git and got an error, so one thing that may have happened if you're new to Git is that you may have gotten some prompts in your when you're trying to push, and it may have asked you for, say, your username and looked something like this. These are screenshots from someone else's issues, since mine have previously been resolved. But it might ask you for your username, which you can submit, but then it might ask you for your password, which also seems intuitive. But there's then a chance that you were thrown an error that looked something like this. Password authentication failed. And it gives you a link to tell you a little bit more about this thing called personal access tokens. And if this did happen to you, then I'm going to post another video that sort of walks through setting up this access token so that we can bypass this error and set up sort of this connection between our computers and GitHub more easily. Also in another video, I will go over how to work with Git and do this connection from the terminal or the sort of from your shell, which if those words don't really ring any bells to you, you can bypass it, but for those who are interested in using less pointing and clicking and making your workflow a little more keyboard based and working in across a few different kinds of languages, then you can jump over to that video and we can go over that. So that's it for this recording.